They weren't the headliners. They weren't the guys selling out the Portland sports arena. But they were here, filling out the cards, putting in the miles, and leaving behind the stories you'd never expect. I'm your host, Frank Culbertson, and this is Portland Wrestling Obscurities, forgotten, brief, and barely remembered. Tonight, a Sioux wrestler who was asked to lean into his heritage, a Mennonite billed as Canada's handsomest athlete, and a 30-year journeyman who wrestled everywhere, but never quite hit the spotlight. Let's start in 1973 with Jerry Goodvoice. He wasn't a regular in Portland, just a part-timer really, but he made a mark, if only briefly. Goodvoice wrestled under his own name and sometimes as Jay Clintstock. In Portland, it was just 2 matches and a battle royal in June of 1973. He lost to Ray Glenn and Al Madril, but that wasn't really the story. Goodvoice was of Teton-Sioux heritage, and the promoters wanted him to play that up. Feathers, bright colors, the whole package. In an interview with Slam Wrestling, he once said, "The people that were interested in Indians, they wanted to see it. I never pushed the thing out. I was just the way I was. I did a little bit more in the ring than I did anywhere else, but then it was all feathers and bright colors." Don Owen had a long history of booking native talent. Guys like Bull Ramos, Billy Whitewolf, Johnny War Eagle, Stephen Little Bear, and Jay Youngblood. Goodvoice fit that mold. He wasn't a star in Portland, but he's part of that tradition that kept alive for decades by Don Owen. Now, here's a guy with a resume you don't hear every day, Bob Harms. He wrestled in Calgary, then settled down in the Vancouver scene in the 70s and popped into Portland here and there. He only had 6 matches at the Portland Sports Arena, spread out between 73, 74, and 78. Nothing spectacular, mostly undercard work. But it's what he did outside of wrestling that makes him unforgettable. Harms was billed in the ring as the magnificent Mennonite, Canada's handsomest athlete. But outside the ring, he was a teacher, starting in a one-room schoolhouse and a logging camp. Later, he lectured in psychology at UBC and Douglas College. And then, just to round it out, he was an accomplished oil painter. His work was shown in New York, London, Vancouver, and even Hong Kong. And he had a sense of humor, too. On Vancouver TV, he once missed a knee drop, and the announcer, Ron Moyer, quipped, "Looks like he rolled out of harm's way." Moyer cracked himself up live on air, and that blooper stuck around just long enough as any win or loss on his record. Harms passed away in 2015 from liver cancer. But really, how many guys can say they wrestled, taught psychology, and painted for world galleries? Now, that's quite a legacy. And then there's Don Serrano. Now, this is what I mean when I say journeyman. Serrano started in 1952 and wrestled for 31 years. By the time he came to Portland in 1970, he was already nearly 2 decades into his career. He wrestled for about 3 months here, never picked up a win, but went to some solid draws with Haru Sasaki, Bobby Nichols, Tony Bourne, and Johnny Costas. In Portland, he was there to fill the card, to make the stars look good. But zoom out, and his career looks different. He was trained by Argentina Rocca, a legend of the 1950s. He married Olga Martinez, a women's wrestler, and in 1974, he and Hurricane Castillo won the North American tag titles in Puerto Rico. He may not have been a headliner in Portland, but he put in the miles, put in the matches, and the work, just like so many of those unsung veterans who kept the business alive. So there you have it. Jerry Goodvoice gave Portland fans a glimpse of native heritage wrapped in feathers and color. Bob Harms was a wrestler, a teacher, and an artist, a man who rolled out of harm's way. And Don Serrano, he was the classic journeyman, grinding out 3 decades of matches and making stars shine brighter. They never held gold in Portland. They never headlined the sports arena, but each left their mark in a very different way. Hey, this has been Frank Culbertson, and this has been Portland Wrestling Obscurities, forgotten, brief, and barely remembered. It's inspired by the Encyclopedia of Portland Wrestlers by Mike Rogers, which is available now on Amazon. New episodes drop every Tuesday and Friday. Listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your special wrestling history fix. And don't miss the next story from the shadows of the squared circle.